The arrogant assumption, the discovery. In the far reaches of the Andromeda sector, the massive command ship Sovereign's Wrath drifted through the cosmic void like a metallic leviathan. Its dark hull stretched for kilometers, bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. Admiral Corax of the Zephyrian Empire stood before the main viewing screen, his reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. His scaled hands gripped the command rail as his yellow eyes studied the holographic display floating before him. "Admiral, our deep space scouts have completed their survey of the Sol system," reported Commander Vex, her voice carrying the typical arrogance of the Empire's officer class. "The third planet appears to support intelligent life, but our analysis shows them to be remarkably primitive." Corax's tongue flicked out briefly, tasting the air as he considered this information. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 star systems in the past century, each victory adding to their reputation as the galaxy's most feared military force. Their technology was unmatched, their discipline absolute, and their hunger for expansion endless. "Show me this." "Earth," Corax commanded, his voice a low rumble that echoed through the bridge. The holographic display shifted, revealing a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. Data streams flowed alongside the image, detailing atmospheric composition, population estimates, and most importantly, defensive capabilities. The numbers were laughable by Empire standards. They possessed chemical rockets, crude nuclear weapons, and what appears to be a handful of orbital stations. Vex continued, unable to hide her amusement. "Their largest warships are barely the size of our shuttlecraft. Intelligence suggests they've achieved faster-than-light communication, but lack any meaningful interstellar travel capability." Corax studied the rotating image of Earth, noting the scattered debris of what humans called space junk orbiting the planet. Primitive indeed. The Empire's smallest frigate could obliterate their entire orbital infrastructure without breaking formation. "Population?" he inquired. "Approximately 8 billion, Admiral, divided into numerous competing nation-states. They appear to spend considerable resources fighting among themselves rather than preparing for external threats." A sound that might have been laughter emerged from Corax's throat. "Divided and primitive. This conquest will serve as excellent training for our newer crews." He turned to face his bridge officers, all of whom stood at rigid attention. "Prepare the Third Fleet. We'll take this system with minimal force and establish it as a forward base for our expansion into this galactic arm." Earth's apparent weakness. 23 light-years away, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Luna Station, Earth's primary orbital defense platform. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the curve of Earth below, its surface dotted with the lights of civilization. To any casual observer, Luna Station looked like exactly what it was supposed to appear to be, an outdated research facility with basic defensive capabilities. The station's corridors were deliberately cramped and poorly lit. The technology visible throughout was intentionally dated, showing wear and patches that suggested humanity was struggling to maintain even their limited space infrastructure. Visitors from other species, on the rare occasions they received any, would see exactly what they expected: a species that had barely managed to crawl out of their home system. "Captain, we're receiving long-range sensor readings," reported Lieutenant Torres from his station. "Unknown vessels approaching from the Zephyrian sector." Sarah nodded calmly, though her heart rate increased slightly. They had been expecting this day for over a decade. "Alert condition yellow. Notify Dr. Webb that Operation Curtain may soon commence." Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a facility that existed on no official record, Dr. Marcus Webb received the coded message with a mixture of anticipation and dread. He stood in the center of a vast underground complex that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Hundreds of technicians worked at stations that controlled technology far beyond anything humanity had publicly revealed. "Project Mirror is at full readiness," Dr. Webb announced to his team. "All dimensional generators are online and stable. If the Zephyrians prove to be as aggressive as our intelligence suggests, we'll be ready for them." The technology surrounding Dr. Webb represented humanity's greatest secret. For 50 years, since the first contact with a peaceful trader species, humans had been playing the greatest deception in galactic history. While appearing to struggle with basic space technology, they had actually been advancing at an unprecedented rate, incorporating alien science with human innovation to create capabilities that would shock the galaxy. But the key to their strategy was patience. Let the aggressive species see them as weak. Let the Empire grow confident. Let them come close enough to spring the trap. The Empire's confidence aboard the Sovereign's wrath. Admiral Corax reviewed the final preparations for the Earth conquest. His fleet consisted of 200 vessels, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to swift assault cruisers. Each ship in his armada could have conquered Earth single-handedly, according to their intelligence reports. "Admiral, our fleet has assembled at the system's edge," Commander Vex reported. "All vessels report ready for immediate engagement." Corax nodded approvingly. The Empire's military doctrine was simple and effective. Overwhelming force applied, swiftly and without mercy. Resistance was not just futile, it was actively discouraged through displays of devastating power. "Open a channel to the human homeworld," Corax ordered. "Let us see if these primitives have any sense of self-preservation." The communication array activated, sending a signal toward the small blue planet that hung defenseless in the void. Corax composed himself, preparing to deliver the ultimatum that had preceded the fall of dozens of civilizations. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Elena Rodriguez sat in the secure command bunker beneath the United Nations building. Around her, the leaders of humanity's major nations maintained expressions of barely controlled panic that would have been convincing to any observer. They had practiced these roles for years, knowing that their performance might determine the survival of their species. "Madam President, we're receiving a transmission from the approaching fleet," reported General Harrison, his voice perfectly calibrated to convey fear and desperation. The main screen activated, revealing the imposing figure of Admiral Corax. His reptilian features were arranged in what humans would recognize as contempt, his yellow eyes reflecting the certainty of victory. "I am Admiral Corax of the Zephyrian Empire," his translated voice boomed through the chamber. "Your primitive world has been selected for incorporation into our territories. You will immediately surrender all governmental authority and prepare your population for relocation. Resistance is not only futile but will result in the complete sterilization of your planet." President Rodriguez allowed her face to show appropriate shock and fear. "Admiral, surely we can reach some accommodation. Our world poses no threat to your empire. We're barely capable of interplanetary travel." Corax's laugh was a harsh sound that conveyed millennia of evolutionary dominance. "Your capabilities are irrelevant. Your system contains resources we require. You have 24 of your planetary rotations to prepare for our arrival. Use this time wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the human leaders in apparent stunned silence. But beneath their acted terror, each of them felt a cold satisfaction. The trap was set. Hidden preparations. As the Empire's fleet began its final approach to Earth, humanity's true preparations shifted into high gear. Across the planet, hidden facilities came online. Ancient-looking satellites in Earth's orbit revealed themselves to be far more sophisticated than they appeared. Weapon systems that had been disguised as space debris for decades powered up silently. Captain Chen stood at her command station, watching as Luna Station transformed around her. Panels slid away to reveal advanced control surfaces. The station's true sensors extended, providing a detailed picture of the approaching fleet that would have impressed even Empire engineers. "All defensive platforms are online and masked," reported Lieutenant Torres. "The Zephyrians are reading us as completely primitive. Their formations indicate they expect no significant resistance." "Excellent," Sarah replied. "Maintain the deception until Dr. Webb gives the signal. Remember, we only get one chance at this." Deep underground, Dr. Webb monitored the dimensional resonance readings that would make Project Mirror possible. The breakthrough technology was humanity's greatest achievement and most dangerous gamble. Based on principles discovered in captured Empire technology decades earlier, but refined through human ingenuity, it represented a quantum leap beyond what any known civilization had achieved. Dimensional matrix stability at 98%, reported his chief engineer. All projection nodes are synchronized and ready for activation. Dr. Webb nodded grimly. They were about to find out if decades of preparation and the greatest scientific minds of their generation had been enough to save their species. "Prepare for activation on my command," he ordered. "And may whatever gods are listening forgive us for what we're about to do." Above them, the Empire's fleet entered Earth's solar system with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey. Admiral Korax stood on his bridge, already planning the victory celebration that would mark another successful conquest. He had no idea that he was leading his fleet into the most devastating trap in galactic history, orchestrated by the very primitives he so thoroughly despised. The greatest shock of his career was approaching at light speed, and humanity was about to reveal that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy, and Earth's seemingly defenseless appearance was about to become the Empire's greatest nightmare. The Vanishing Act. The Empire's final approach. Admiral Korax watched with satisfaction as his fleet moved into Earth's orbital space. The primitive planet hung before them like a ripe fruit ready for plucking. His sensors showed exactly what he expected: scattered defensive satellites that posed no threat, a handful of outdated orbital stations, and absolutely no sign of organized resistance. "Admiral, we're detecting minimal energy signatures from their defensive platforms," reported Commander Vex, her scaled features showing amusement. "Their most powerful weapons appear to be crude nuclear missiles. Our shields won't even register the impact." The Sovereign's Wrath led the formation, flanked by 50 heavy cruisers and surrounded by clouds of smaller vessels. The sight should have been terrifying to any civilization, and Korax expected to receive surrender signals at any moment. Instead, the humans maintained an eerie silence. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from their lunar station," the communications officer announced. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Captain Sarah Chen standing on what appeared to be a cramped, outdated command bridge. Her uniform looked worn, her equipment clearly showing signs of constant repair. Everything about the image reinforced the Empire's assessment of human technological inferiority. "Admiral Korax," she began, her voice carrying what sounded like forced bravery. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. On behalf of humanity, I must ask you to reconsider your position. We may be primitive by your standards, but we will not surrender without a fight." Korax's laughter echoed through his bridge. "Captain Chen, your courage is admirable but pointless. You cannot possibly believe your obsolete weapons can damage Empire vessels. I offer you one final opportunity to surrender and spare your species unnecessary suffering." Sarah's expression hardened with what appeared to be desperate determination. "Admiral, you've made one critical error in your assessment of humanity." "And what might that be?" Korax asked, genuinely curious about what delusion could drive such confidence. "You assumed we were as primitive as we appear." Sarah's smile was slight but unmistakably dangerous. "Dr. Webb, initiate Project Mirror." The impossible begins deep beneath Earth's surface. Dr. Marcus Webb's fingers hovered over the activation controls that would change galactic history forever. Around him, hundreds of technicians monitored systems that represented the culmination of decades of secret research and development. "All dimensional generators are synchronized," reported his chief engineer. "Power levels at maximum. Dimensional rifts can be opened on command." Dr. Webb took a deep breath and activated the sequence that humanity had prepared for this moment. "Project Mirror is now active. All stations, prepare for dimensional displacement." Above ground, the first sign that something was wrong came as the Empire's sensors began registering impossible readings. Energy signatures that should not exist were appearing throughout the system. Admiral Korax watched his tactical displays with growing confusion as space itself seemed to ripple around his fleet. "What are these readings?" he demanded. "Our sensors must be malfunctioning." "Sir, all instruments are functioning normally," replied his sensor officer, his voice carrying the first note of uncertainty. "But the energy patterns we're detecting, they're unlike anything in our databases." The Sovereign's Wrath shuddered slightly as gravitational waves passed through its hull. On planets throughout the Empire, scientists would later describe the phenomenon as impossible according to all known laws of physics. But humanity had spent 50 years learning that the universe held far more secrets than any single species could imagine. Captain Chen's image on the main screen seemed to flicker and shift, as if she were standing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Admiral, you're experiencing the effects of dimensional manipulation on a scale never before achieved. Project Mirror isn't just a weapon system, it's a complete reimagining of space-time physics. Korax felt the first stirrings of genuine fear. Impossible. No species has mastered dimensional technology to this degree. Our own scientists barely understand the theoretical implications. Your mistake, Admiral, was assuming that primitive meant stupid, Sarah replied. Humanity has a particular talent for taking existing knowledge and pushing it far beyond its original limitations. We've had decades to study captured Empire technology and improve upon it. The trap revealed around. The Empire's fleet space began to tear open. Massive rifts appeared in the fabric of reality itself, revealing glimpses of other dimensions where the laws of physics operated differently. The Empire's ships, designed to be invulnerable to conventional weapons, found themselves facing forces that their shields and armor were never designed to counter. Admiral, our escort frigates are reporting severe structural stress, Commander Vex announced, her voice tight with panic. The dimensional distortions are affecting our hull integrity at the molecular level. Korax watched in horror as the frigate Empire's Edge simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but displaced into a dimension where matter as they understood it could not maintain cohesion. The ship didn't explode or break apart, it simply stopped, being in their reality. All ships emergency retreat, Korax commanded, but his orders were already too late. The dimensional rifts were expanding, creating a web of displaced space-time that trapped his fleet in an ever-shrinking pocket of stable reality. Dr. Webb monitored the operation from his underground command center, watching as humanity's greatest scientific achievement performed exactly as designed. Dimensional matrix is stable and expanding according to parameters. Enemy fleet movement is restricted to approximately 10% of normal space. The Empire's vessels found themselves caught in a maze of dimensional barriers. When they tried to retreat, they discovered that space behind them had been folded and twisted into impossible configurations. When they attempted to advance, they faced walls of altered reality that their weapons could not penetrate. How is this possible? Korax whispered, watching his invincible fleet become trapped like insects in a web they could not see or understand. Captain Chen's voice carried across the communication channel with calm authority. We learned something important from studying your technology, Admiral. The universe is far more flexible than most species realize. You use brute force and overwhelming firepower. We learned to think creatively. The vanishing as Project Mirror reached full activation. The dimensional rifts began to synchronize into a single, massive distortion that encompassed the entire Empire fleet. The effect was unlike anything recorded in galactic history, a manipulation of space-time that effectively removed the Empire's vessels from normal reality while leaving them completely intact. Sir, our fleet is being displaced into parallel dimensional space, the sensor officer reported, his voice breaking with terror. We're losing contact with ships as they cross the dimensional threshold. Korax watched helplessly as his mighty dreadnoughts began to fade from view, not destroyed but translated into a reality where they could no longer affect the physical universe. The crews remained alive and unharmed, but they might as well have been ghosts for all the threat they now posed. This is impossible, he repeated, but the evidence was undeniable. Humanity had achieved something that the Empire's greatest scientists had declared theoretically impossible: the controlled manipulation of dimensional space on a massive scale. Not impossible, Admiral. Dr. Webb's voice joined the communication. Just unprecedented. We've spent decades studying dimensional theory, incorporating insights from dozens of alien species, and applying human innovation to push the boundaries of what's achievable. The last of the Empire's vessels faded from normal space, leaving behind only empty void where moments before the galaxy's most feared fleet had dominated the orbital zone around Earth. Emergency beacons continued to transmit from the dimensional prison, but they might as well have been signals from another universe. The galaxy reacts across the galaxy. The Empire's sudden silence sent shockwaves through interstellar civilization. The Zephyrian Empire had been a dominant force for centuries, their military might unquestioned and their expansion seemingly unstoppable. Now an entire fleet had simply vanished while attacking a supposedly primitive world. On distant worlds, alien leaders gathered in emergency sessions. If humanity could neutralize the Empire's fleet so completely, what did that mean for the galactic balance of power? Species that had lived in fear of Empire expansion began to whisper about the possibility of freedom. Captain Sarah Chen stood on Luna Station's observation deck, looking out at the space where the Empire's fleet had been trapped, in dimensional exile. The deception that had taken decades to maintain was finally over. Humanity no longer needed to hide their true capabilities. Captain, we're receiving communications from 17 different species, Lieutenant Torres reported. They're all requesting immediate diplomatic contact. Sarah nodded. Open channels to all of them. It's time for humanity to take its place as a major galactic power. She paused, considering the magnitude of what they had accomplished. And make sure our first message emphasizes that we're interested in peaceful cooperation, not conquest. Dr. Webb emerged from his underground facility for the first time in months, blinking in the sunlight as he contemplated the new era his work had created. Project Mirror had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes, not just protecting Earth, but establishing humanity as a force that could not be ignored or dismissed. The dimensional prison is stable, he reported to the global leadership. The Empire's fleet will remain there indefinitely, alive but unable to return to our reality. They're not harmed, but they're also no longer a threat. President Rodriguez addressed the world that evening, revealing for the first time the true scope of humanity's preparations and capabilities. The primitive facade they had maintained was finally dropped, and the galaxy learned that Earth had been playing a far more sophisticated game than anyone had realized. In the dimensional prison that had once been normal space, Admiral Corax sat in his command chair, staring at the impossible reality that surrounded his fleet. His ships were intact, his crew unharmed, but they existed now in a place where the normal rules of the universe no longer applied. Admiral, Commander Vex said quietly, our long-range communications are still functional. The Empire will know what happened here. Corax nodded grimly. Then they'll know that we gravely underestimated these humans. They appeared primitive because they chose to appear primitive. Their true capabilities... He trailed off, overwhelmed by the implications. The Empire had mocked Earth's defenses and paid the ultimate price. They had vanished not through destruction, but through a demonstration of power so advanced that it redefined what was possible. And humanity, no longer hiding behind the mask of primitiveness, stood ready to take their place among the stars as equals to any civilization in the galaxy. The age of Earth's defenselessness was over. The age of humanity's true power had begun.